Hello, 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 everyone. Every one of you who are doing this weekly faith project with me. This is a follow-up with you just to see how you're doing and how are things going with your faith. We're only in week 2, but a lot can happen in the second week. I hope you had a great time just discovering how faith is believing in week 1. And now, week 2, faith is believing in the character of God, knowing the character of God. So, how is that going for you? How does God show up for you when you need Him the most? When you're feeling lonely, does He show up as a companion? When you're feeling sad, is He showing up as someone who's a comforter to you? When you're feeling discouraged, does He come in the form of laughter? You know, God can meet every one of our needs right where we're at if we just allow Him to. So just remember that. That is your focal point for this week, is allowing God to show up to meet your very need right where you are. If you're doubting, allow God to show up to be your confidence. And if you're lacking faith, allow God to be your faith. Borrow God's faith. Just tell God, okay, I'm going to take your faith today so that I can believe the way that you believe, so that I can think the way that you think, so that I can be the way that you want me to be, and watch Him show up. He loves that. Just a couple of things to remember. Faith trusts in God. Think about that for a minute. Sit in that. Faith trusts in God. So why shouldn't we? And the more that we trust in God, the more our faith builds and the more our faith increases. Another point to consider, it lays out several different characteristics and probably some that you thought of that the book didn't mention, but add those in there too. You have a few lines to journal here, and you also have some lots of room in the journal that I sent you to add on your thoughts, whatever you're thinking when you're reading about faith is knowing the character of God. Write down what He is to you, what He means to you, so that you can remember that, so that you can go back to that, so that you can recall that for another time. Out of all of these characters of God, characteristics of God, which means the most to you in this moment in your faith journey, and why? So I'm going to share a little bit, be a little bit transparent and a little bit candid for you, with you, as to what characteristic means the most to me. You know, for many, many years, I struggled with imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, and what that means is I worked hard at trying to make people believe I was one thing and not another. And that was because I was so ashamed of who I was, this little ordinary girl coming from an ordinary town, not really having a whole lot, never having the latest clothes, never having the most popular shoes. I remember at a time when Nikes were becoming popular amongst us in elementary school, and I wanted a pair of Nikes just to be able to fit in, and my mom just didn't have the money, couldn't afford to buy me a pair of Nikes. And so what I did was I saved my allowance, and I bought a pair of, they weren't really a pair of knockoff brand of Nikes, but they were like the most cheapest and the most simplest pair of Nikes. I remember them, they were white, they were cloth, and they had the navy blue stripe going across the shoe. And even looking at they looked like a pair of Kmart Nikes, but they were Nikes, and I wanted them just to be able to fit in. And I can remember one of the young boys saying to me when I came to school that following Monday with my Nikes on, well, it's about time you finally caught up with the times. And that stung. That stung because it made me feel like, or it made me know and understand that people were looking at what I wore, what I had on, how I measured up. And even though I weren't in those spaces of conversations, you can tell when people don't see you as an equal, or they see you as less than. You can see that, you can feel that, and you can know that without them even communicating that to you. And that's what it was for me. And so when he said that to me, it really hurt my feelings. It hurt my feelings. And that's a memory that I recall even in my adulthood now. And whenever I'm feeling insecure, or whenever I'm feeling less than, or whenever I'm feeling like I'm not measuring up to everyone else who's around me, I always think about that thought. So God has to be, for me, the characteristic of I am enough. I am enough. So in this moment, I journaled in my space. The characteristic that means the most to me as I'm referencing God is He is enough. And when I sit in that, and when I meditate on that, and when I focus on that, it just seems to make everything better. The thick cloud of insecurity just starts to instantly dissipate and mists away. And so I want you to do that while you are just indulging into this Bible study series. Really, really lean into the focus of the chapter so that your faith can grow, so that your faith can flourish, and that we can and celebrate with you in that, because that's what it's all about. So remember, week 2, knowing the characteristic of God. To me, God is in this moment reminding me that I am enough. He is enough. I am enough. His faith is enough. We'll see you on Sunday.